Hello everyone, my name is Sam Kargas. I'm a music designer and a composer, and today I'm going to be doing a deep dive into a procedural music system that I built for Unreal Engine 5. This is going to be a deep dive, so it's going to get fairly technical, so if you're into the nitty-gritty, then you're in the right place. If you haven't watched the 3 to 4 minute demo I put together for this system, it's just me playing through the Unreal Engine level, then I suggest that you watch that first, so I'll put that link in the description below. This music system is heavily influenced from a live stream on the Unreal Engine YouTube page with Aaron McLaren, who's a lead audio programmer at Epic Games. So I'm utilizing a lot of systems used in that video, so I will also link that in the description as well. So I designed this music system in the Phrygian mode to provide an intense atmosphere to the level. It's in C Phrygian. The Phrygian mode is a classic choice for action scenes and intense moments. Going back to ancient Greece for a second, Plato actually called the Phrygian mode courageous, active, and capable of escorting wounds and death. So it's pretty understandable why a lot of action sequences and action cues are using the Phrygian mode. A little bit of ancient wisdom for us. So here is an illustration of the music system. Bear in mind that I do have specific musical notes written here, but because it's procedurally generated at runtime, it will be different every time. So this is just here for illustration. I should start by defining what I mean by seed. A seed in procedural music is a musical cell. You can think of it as like a short musical idea. In this system, the seeds are 2 bars long, and they repeat 2 to 4 times. This helps the system from feeling too static, while also embracing the randomness that we can achieve in a game setting. I implemented the seeds in this form to prevent it from becoming too random. Melodies are often most effective when they're placed in some sort of structure. So the main theme comes back, and this form actually has 2 themes that come back, one of them coming back twice as often as the other one. And then we have a random seed just to act as like our development seed. So it's going to be always different every time we go through the form. The first seed is consonant, and the second seed is dissonant, and then it oscillates from consonants and dissonance again through the first and random seed at the bottom here. This gives an oscillation to the seeds, and it helps define the structure and give the form a bit of movement. All right, so I'm going to delve into the meta sound now. So the seeds that I was talking about in the illustration, those melodies are actually being generated by a kind of like a saw wave generator. It's got a few different components to it. It's got a saw wave super oscillator, a square wave super oscillator, another saw wave super oscillator with some FM synthesis techniques, and then also a sine wave. So all these are combined together to actually create the timbre. And then there's varying LFOs on the volumes of all these oscillators, and LFOs on a ladder filter and a stereo panner. These are just to provide a movement throughout the melody. All right, so here's how that main melody sounds. So now we're in our second seed. You can hear how it's more dissonant. So now we're back to our first seed again, more consonant. So now we're in our random seed. And back to our first seed again. And that's a full repeat of the overall form. Now, every time this is generated, it's going to be a little bit different, which is kind of the fun of procedural music. But you can hear the oscillation between the different seeds, which helps define the structure. So on to the actual melody generation now. So when the meta sound starts, we start by triggering 16th notes, as you can see here, with a trigger repeat, and that's fed into a trigger counter, and then that count is fed into this module 4 node here. And effectively what this module 4 is doing is ensuring that our downbeats, the downbeats of our 16th notes are always consonant. So if they're consonant, meaning this is true, we get a random float from this scale to note array. And this is set to chord tones only. So since we're in C Phrygian, we're only going to get the minor chord tone, so C minor. If it's false, meaning we're on the offbeat of our 16th notes, it gets fed into this trigger compare Boolean. And this Boolean is just comparing whether we're consonant or dissonant, meaning whether we're in the first seed or the second and random seed. So if we're in the first seed, meaning we're in the consonant part of our Boolean, then we actually get any tone with this random get float array. And I actually set this up as like a weighting table. So I have the 7 elements in here to represent the 7 elements in the scale. And as you can see here, the first, third, and fifth elements have a weighting of 100. So meaning we're more likely to trigger our tonic chord. So the 1, the 5, and the 1, the 3, and the 5 of our scale, meaning the tonic chord. And then the weighting on the passing tones or dissonant tones is going to be less. So this will create a more consonant sounding melody. If this Boolean parameter is set to false, meaning it's dissonant, then we get from a different set of float values. So similar to up here, except the first, third, and fifth scale degrees have no weighting at all. And then the passing tones or dissonant tones are going to be have a greater weighting, effectively creating a more dissonant melody. So now on to the rhythm generator. As you can see here, the rhythm generator is separate from the actual melody note generator. The reason why I'm doing this is because it has to do with this modulo 4 node and this trigger counter. I want to ensure that the downbeats are always consonant. So I have to set this up separately from the note generator so that this rhythm didn't mess with our modulo 4 node. Similar to how I'm setting the weighting on the scale degrees, I'm actually setting a weighting on the actual for the rhythmic values. And since the seed is 2 bars long and we're triggering 16th notes, we need 32 elements in our array. And I have different weightings for setup for each of the 16th notes in our 2-bar phrase. We start on this first one, which is a more sparse melody, so it's not as busy. Once the score reaches 95, I switch over to this float array to create an increase in surface rhythm, just to provide growing intensity to the leading to the end of the match. Okay, so let me show you how that sounds. So here is the first float array. So here's the Boolean triggered. And what's that? And that creates the intensity leading to the end of the match. So there's a couple different layers to this system. There's actually a long note melody, which oscillates between consonant and dissonant tones of the Phrygian scale, which kind of parallels our consonants and dissonance oscillation in our seed phrase structure. And here's how that sounds. That's how that sounds. You can hear that there's a few LFOs on that as well to give that melody a lot of movement. Another layer are these pulsating 16th notes, which is just a kind of like a low square wave. Here's how it sounds. And there's an LFO on the volume just to give it a lot of movement. For the bass line, it's actually just a drone. It keeps us centered around C Phrygian, and it helps fill out the low end a bit. Here's how it sounds. It's just a sine wave and a little bit of a saw wave layered on top of it. So here is the low brass phrase. It's procedurally generated from three notes, a low B flat, a low C, and a low D flat. I'm generating the rhythm for this low brass phrase in a similar way to I was generating the rhythms in the main melody, and it's with a float array table here, and the phrase is set to quarter notes, and since it's 2 bars long, I have 8 elements in this array with varying weights on each of the elements. The first element doesn't have any weighting at all, just to give the phrase forward motion, though it doesn't get bogged down on the first beat of the bar. And this phrase randomly picks between B flat, C, and D flat. That helps us hover around C Phrygian and makes us feel like we're in that mode. The next layer is this hi-hat layer. It's just playing constant 16th notes to give us a driving feel throughout the piece. Another layer to this system are some constant 16th notes in the strings, and the volume of this layer is linearly related to the score of the match. The musical objective to the whole system is to get more intense as the score gets higher. And these string pulses relate to that objective. All right, now on to the blueprint. So just to remind us of the form, we have a first and a second seed. So we have to cache those that melody so we can recall it later in our form. So how I'm doing that is setting a random integer between 1 and 40 million. The system isn't endless. But if 40 million variations isn't enough for you, and that's not enough value for you, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe I'll just bump this number up to 50 million, and then bump it up to 60, depending on how I feel that day. There's a small chance that these two integers will be actually the same value. So I'm just doing a quick compare check here to see if they're the same, and if they are, then it resets the second seed. But if they're not, it moves on to the next part of the blueprint, which is setting up our quartz clock. So I get a reference to the quartz clock subsystem, set the time signature, and then set the BPM. I hard-coded the BPM here at 175 beats per minute because I recorded the hi-hats at that tempo. So I didn't want to have this so I could change it and mess up my whole system. Then the next step is to create our sound. So we're creating our music system and then setting that to a blueprint variable. Then we set our first seed with this set integer parameter. And then we play our quantized event when we start our clock. But first, we need to set our phrase value and our form state. Our phrase value is a blueprint integer that represents at which bar we're going to change to the next seed. So every time I'm changing the seed, I'm also setting a new phrase value so that the system knows when to change to the next seed. The form state just represents it's 4 integers between 0 and 3 that represent each part of the form. So the first seed is set to 0, the second seed is set to 1, and so on and so forth for each part of the form. Then the next step is to start our quartz clock. And then I have these, and I set up custom events to fire off every bar and every beat with this, with 2 subscribe to quantization event nodes. So the first event I have here is a bar event. So this is being executed at the beginning of each bar. And I'm referencing the bar number to relate that to the phrase value to see if we should be triggering certain phrases. But the first thing we got to check is to see if we should end the match. If not, then we see if we should trigger the low brass phrase. And since the low brass phrase is being triggered 2 bars before the seed change, and it's 2 bars long, we're taking the phrase value and subtracting it by 2 and see if that's equal to our current bar. If not, then we check to see if we should change the seed. The area up here is to change the octaves. So the octaves, every time, instead of just keeping the melody in the same octave, because it gets a little bit repetitive, I'm actually randomizing which octave the melody is in to give it a little bit more variation. And then all these little commented sections here, and this is our form state. As I was saying before, this relates to our overall system, as I was describing earlier. Depending on which integer value is set, will be rerouted into each of these sections, which resets the form state depending on where we need to go next, and sets whether our saw melody should be consonant and dissonant. So the next event I'm going to talk about is the beat event, and this is being executed every beat of the bar. So it's being triggered 4 times as fast as our bar event. Just to reiterate the objective of the music system is designed to get more intense as the score gets higher. And how I'm doing that with the beat, this beat event here, is I'm firing off more frequently these short phrases, which are comprised of about a 1 beat long phrase, either in some trumpets, trombones, French horns, and some high woodwinds. And I'm triggering those more frequently as the match score gets higher. So how I'm achieving the increasing frequency of those short phrases is by first getting the highest score from either team, from this Lyra team subsystem here. Then I set that to a blueprint variable. And then I'm setting this a variable that I call brass play rate. And I'm setting this brass play rate depending on where what the score is in the match, which is just an integer value. I'm using that integer value and then the high score to determine how frequently to fire off these short events. I'm taking the high score and dividing it by this brass play rate. So as the score of the match gets higher, this brass play rate gets lower. So effectively, as the match progresses, we get more frequent firing off of this little short event. And I'm also using the high score to set the string those pulsating 16th notes that I was talking about before. I'm also doing setting that here, as well as checking to see if our score is over 95 to increase the surface rhythm of the saw melody, as I was describing earlier. All right, that's all she wrote. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the procedural music system that I built for Unreal Engine 5. Procedural music is super fun. It's awesome to get a different musical outcome every time you play the match. And it makes it super, super interesting and super useful for a lot of game music. And it's awesome that we can build these systems, via meta sounds and a quartz clock directly within Unreal Engine 5 now, which is super exciting. Thank you for making it all the way to the end of the video. Really appreciate it. If you have any comments or questions about this system, feel free to let me know. Until next time, take care.